The smell of loneliness. Kalia lived alone in the red hills of Velmer. She had no friends, no family, no home in the city. Her people called her cursed. They said her body gave off a terrible smell. A smell like old metal mixed with wet earth. It followed her everywhere, like a shadow. No matter how much she washed, the smell stayed. Even animals avoided her. Children threw rocks when they saw her from a distance. But Kalia was not dangerous. She never hurt anyone. She only watched from far away. She lived in a cave near the cliffs, close to the winds that could carry the smell away. She collected rainwater, hunted small animals, and slept under the stars. No one knew that Kalia sometimes cried at night. She didn't cry because she was weak. She cried because she didn't understand why she was different, why her scent made others run, and why, deep inside her chest, something always felt locked. One morning, a strange light flashed across the sky. It burned like fire and made a loud roar. Kalia stood at the edge of the cliff and looked up. A silver shape was falling fast, smoke trailing behind it. It hit the desert far from the city, sending dust into the air. It was a ship, but not one of her people. It looked human. Kalia didn't wait. She grabbed her staff and ran, her long legs kicking up red sand. She moved fast, following the smoke. She didn't know why. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was hope. Maybe she was just tired of being alone. The crash site was still hot when she arrived. The metal of the ship was broken and burned. There were strange letters on the side, but she couldn't read them. Carefully, she climbed over a broken piece of the hull. Inside, she found him. A human. A man. He was unconscious, his body lying still under a half-broken chair. He had short dark hair, pale skin, and blood on his forehead. But he was breathing, slowly. Kalia stared at him, unsure. She had heard stories about humans, violent, smart, full of fire. But this one looked fragile. She stepped closer, and something strange happened. For a moment, the air around her changed. The smell that always surrounded her, it faded. She blinked, surprised. The human moved slightly, his eyes opening halfway. He looked at her face, and didn't scream. Kalia expected fear. But his eyes were calm, even soft. He tried to speak, but no words came out. His body was weak, maybe broken. Kalia made a decision. She reached out, picked him up, and carried him back to her cave. It took hours. He was heavy, and the desert heat burned her feet. But she didn't stop. Something inside her said this human was important. More important than she could understand. At the cave, she laid him gently on a soft bed of leaves and cloth. She poured water into his mouth, drop by drop. She wiped the blood from his face. When she touched his skin again, the smell faded once more. Even more than before. She looked at her own hands, confused. What was this human doing to her scent? After a few hours, the human finally spoke. His voice was rough, but kind. "Where am I?" he asked. Kalia didn't answer at first. She hadn't spoken in days, maybe weeks. She finally said, "Safe." He looked at her, tired eyes blinking slowly. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "Kalia." He smiled faintly. "I'm Eli." Then he said something that made her chest tighten. "I don't smell anything bad." Kalia froze. No one had ever said that to her. Not once. Not in all her years of life. She didn't know what to say. For the first time, her heart beat not with fear, but with something else. A small, bright light inside her. But far outside the cave, in the deep desert, something growled. The sound was not human. It was not from her people either. It was ancient, loud, and angry. Something had picked up her scent, and it was coming. The human in the dust. Eli woke to the sound of wind whispering through stone. He wasn't in his ship. He wasn't even on metal. He was lying on something soft, strange leaves and warm cloth. His head hurt, but the pain was quiet, like it had been waiting for him to wake up. He opened his eyes slowly. The light was red and dim, coming from the walls of a cave. The air was dry but clean, and for the first time since the crash, he didn't feel afraid. He turned his head and saw her sitting there, still, silent, watching. Kalia. Her skin shimmered in the firelight. Silver gray, smooth, with faint glowing lines across her arms. Her eyes were large and deep, like pools of night sky. She looked strong, but not hard. Beautiful but lonely, and somehow familiar. Eli tried to sit up, but his body refused. He let out a small breath and said, "You saved me." Kalia said nothing. She only nodded, her expression unreadable. But Eli noticed something strange. She didn't move away. She didn't cover her face or turn her back. She just stayed close enough to touch. Most aliens Eli had met didn't trust humans, and humans didn't trust them. But this woman, this alien, had carried him through the desert. She had cared for him, and she wasn't afraid of him, just like he wasn't afraid of her. He reached out his hand slowly, his fingers shaking. She looked at it, surprised, then placed her own hand in his. The moment they touched, the air changed again. That strange smell, earthy, sharp, metallic, vanished. Eli noticed it, but Kalia felt it, deep in her bones. She pulled her hand back like it burned. Eli blinked, confused. I didn't mean to, he started. It's not you, she said quietly. Her voice was soft, low, like the wind before a storm. It's me. Eli stared at her. I don't understand, he said. Kalia stood up, walking to the mouth of the cave. She didn't look back as she spoke. I've always smelled like death to my people. They said I was born wrong. Some say I carry a sickness. Others say I bring bad luck. But you, she paused. You touched me, and the smell left. How? Eli didn't have an answer. But something inside him felt strange too. Ever since he had woken up near her, he felt lighter, like something inside him had been cleaned or unlocked. Suddenly, a sound echoed from outside. Low, growling, like metal grinding against bone. Kalia stiffened. Eli tried to sit up again, heart racing. What was that? Kalia grabbed her staff and walked outside. The wind was picking up, red sand flying through the air. But in the distance, she saw shadows, tall, thin, moving fast. They were not her people. They were not human either. She had smelled them before. Long ago, in her nightmares. Creatures of smoke and rage, drawn to something ancient, something inside her. The scent that everyone feared. It wasn't just a curse. It was a signal. A beacon. They were coming for her. And now for him. Kalia rushed back into the cave. Get up, she said sharply. Eli pushed himself to his feet, legs weak but steady. She handed him a metal bar from the crash site. Crude, but strong. He gripped it tightly, even though he could barely stand. You should run, she said. I won't, Eli replied. Kalia stared at him, shocked. Why? Because you didn't run from me, he said. And maybe I don't smell it, but I can feel it. Whatever's coming, it's not just after you. It's after both of us now. Kalia's heart pounded. Not with fear, with something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. Connection. Outside, the shadows crept closer. Red sand rose around them, eyes glowing through the dust. The wind carried a strange sound, like breathing, but wrong. Eli stepped beside Kalia, not behind her, beside her, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't standing alone. Washed in silence. When Kalia was a child, her mother told her a story. It was about creatures made of dust and bone. They walked without sound. They fed on scent, on fear, on truth. If you ever smell yourself too strongly, her mother said, run, Kalia. Run far and don't look back. She thought it was just a story. Until now, Kalia stood at the mouth of the cave, staff in hand. Beside her, Eli gripped a metal bar, his arms shaking. The wind outside screamed like a warning. Red sand flew in circles, covering the ground like blood. Then they appeared. Tall, thin, skin stretched like old cloth over sharp bones. No eyes, no mouths. Just long heads and twisting limbs. They didn't walk. They floated just above the ground. Silent, but full of hunger. Kalia's scent exploded in the air. Hot, electric, wild. The creatures twitched, then turned. They had found her. And now, they had found Eli too. One of them rushed forward. Kalia swung her staff fast, striking it across the chest. The thing flew back, crashing into the stone. But it didn't bleed. It only hissed like steam and rose again. Eli stepped forward as another creature moved toward him. He raised his metal bar and hit it with all his strength. His hands burned, his body weak, but he didn't stop. I've fought worse, he said through gritted teeth. Though I can't remember when. Kalia almost smiled. Almost. The fight was chaos. Dust filled the air. Kalia moved like a dancer. Quick, sharp, no wasted steps. Eli fought like a human. Messy, stubborn, impossible to stop. But the creatures didn't die. They kept coming. And Kalia knew why. They weren't here to kill. They were here to take. They wanted something inside her. something she had never understood. Until now, as Kalia fought, her arms burned. The glowing lines in her skin pulsed with light. Eli looked at her, eyes wide. "What's happening to you?" "I don't know," she said, "but I think I'm done hiding it." She grabbed one of the creatures by the throat. It hissed and twisted, but she didn't let go. Her hand glowed bright, hot like fire but calm like water. The creature turned to ash. "Gone." Eli stared, shocked. "You can destroy them," he said. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't want to know." But now, there was no choice. The last two creatures backed away. They weren't afraid. They were waiting, planning. Then, without warning, they vanished, melted into the wind. Silence returned. The cave stood quiet once more, but the air felt heavier, like the fight wasn't over, just paused. Kalia fell to her knees, breathing hard. The glow in her skin faded, but her body shook. Eli knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us," he said. "No," Kalia replied. "They let us go." She looked at the sky. The wind had stopped, but the stars above were moving, shifting, blinking, forming shapes she didn't recognize. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "They come in silence. They leave behind a storm." Kalia's scent returned, quiet now, but deeper. Not just a smell, a message, a memory, a warning. The burn mark. Eli dreamed he was underwater, but there was no ocean, no waves, no sound. Just endless blue light. He was floating, weightless. Above him, a silver moon with Kalia's eyes. Below him, a burning symbol on his chest. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Not his. Someone else's. Or something else's. He woke with a gasp. The firelight was low, almost out. Kalia was asleep beside the wall, wrapped in a blanket of woven cloth. Eli sat up slowly. His chest ached, his arm tingled. He pulled up his sleeve. There it was. A mark burned into his skin. Circular, sharp lines spiraling outward. It glowed faintly like Kalia's had. "What is happening to me?" he whispered. The mark wasn't painful, but it felt alive, like it was watching or listening. Kalia stirred, opening her eyes. Her gaze went straight to the mark on his arm. She sat up, silent. "I saw that symbol once," she said. "Where?" Eli asked. She hesitated. "In the city's oldest book, locked in the temple vaults." It was a warning. It said, "When the mark returns, the blood must awaken." Eli laughed nervously. "Well, that's not terrifying at all." Kalia didn't laugh. She stared at him. "The creatures didn't come for me," she said. "They came for us." Eli looked down at the mark again. He touched it gently. It was warm. Kalia stood and walked to the edge of the cave. Beyond the cliffs, the desert stretched out like an endless red sea. But something was glowing in the distance. Blue lights, moving like fireflies. Not natural, not safe. "They're not done with us," she said. "Then we go to them," Eli said, surprising himself. Kalia turned to him. "You would walk into danger for someone you just met." Eli shrugged. "You saved me from death. That makes us even. Now we save each other." Kalia stared at him. Something soft passed through her eyes. Trust, maybe, or the beginning of it. They packed what little they had. Water, tools, weapons. Eli's steps were slow, but he kept moving. The mark on his arm pulsed each time he walked closer to the glowing lights. The journey through the desert was quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no creatures, no sound. As if the world itself was waiting. After hours of walking, they found a broken tower rising from the sand. Old, made of stone and steel. Symbols carved into its sides, matching the ones on Kalia's skin and Eli's arm. "This is it," Kalia said. "A place from the old world. A place forgotten by both our kinds." They stepped inside. The air was cold. Not like wind, more like space. The kind of cold that doesn't touch the skin but buries itself in the bones. Lights flickered as they moved deeper. Then something spoke. Not with a voice, but inside their minds. Two halves finally joined. "The lock has opened. Now the test begins." Kalia dropped to her knees. The mark on her chest burned bright. Eli cried out, clutching his arm. Pain, sharp and pure, flooded through them both. The tower came to life. Walls lit up with moving symbols. A great door opened at the far end. Behind it, something massive. Not alive, not dead. Sleeping. Kalia whispered. "I think that's what they wanted to awaken." Eli reached for her hand. "Then let's decide what it wakes up to." The truth in the water. The tower spoke without words. It hummed deep in the stone, a sound that wasn't sound. It called to the mark on Kalia's chest and the one on Eli's arm, as if it had been waiting for them. Not for days, not for years, but for centuries. Kalia stood at the doorway, staring into the heart of the tower. It was a wide chamber, shaped like a circle. In the middle, there was a pool, not made of water, but something clearer than any liquid she had ever seen. It didn't reflect the walls or the ceiling. It reflected memories, and sometimes, things that hadn't happened yet. "This is it," she whispered. "The pool of truth." Eli stepped beside her. The light from the pool danced across his skin. The mark on his arm pulsed brighter, as if alive. He looked into the water, but saw no reflection. Only flashes. A hand reaching out. A scream in the dark. A child with glowing eyes. "I don't like this," he said. Kalia nodded slowly. "Truth is not made to comfort." She stepped into the pool. The liquid didn't feel wet. It felt like air that remembered. Eli followed her, and the pool reacted instantly. Light burst upward. Symbols spun in circles around them, and the world vanished. They were not in the tower anymore. They were standing on a bridge of stars, surrounded by empty space. Before them stood two massive shapes, one of light, one of shadow. Neither spoke, but both waited. Kalia reached out to the light, but it pulled away. It moved toward Eli instead. "What is this?" he asked. Kalia stepped back, eyes wide. "I think we're being shown who we were, or who we were meant to be." The shadow reached toward Kalia, not to hurt her, to join with her. She didn't move. She let it touch her, and the moment it did, she understood. Her scent, her exile, her glow. It wasn't a sickness. It was a signal. She wasn't born wrong. She was born as a bridge, a connection between two forgotten bloodlines. One that came from deep inside her planet, and one that came from beyond the stars. Eli saw it too. He saw ancient humans in black ships, landing on Kalia's world long ago. He saw a child born from two worlds, Kalia's ancestor. And he saw himself, not just crashing here by chance, but pulled here, by fate, by blood. They were not strangers. They were a loop, a broken bond trying to heal across time. The vision ended. The pool went dark. Kalia and Eli stood in silence, breathing hard, their skin still glowing. "You're part of me," Kalia said quietly. "And you're part of this place," Eli answered. The tower began to shake, not with danger, but with purpose. A stone wall shifted, revealing a passage. And inside that passage, light, pure, golden, endless. But something else was waking too. Behind them, far beneath the tower, a second force began to rise. One that had waited just as long, but not to heal, to feed. Kalia looked at Eli. Her scent filled the air, not sharp, not sour, but warm, calm, real. She was no longer hiding it, and Eli no longer feared it. Together, they stepped toward the light, not as broken beings, but as something new. The ones who feared her. High above the red city, inside a tall black tower, the elders stood in silence. Their robes were clean, their faces hard, but fear hung in the air like smoke. For years they had hidden the truth, locked it behind stone, buried it beneath rules, and called it tradition. One of them broke the silence. "She's awakened." The others didn't reply. They looked at the sky, at the strange lights above the hills, at the golden glow rising from the old ruins, at the stars blinking in unnatural patterns. "The scent has changed," another elder whispered. "It's not decay anymore. It's power," said the first. "And she's no longer alone." Far from the city, Kalia and Eli walked down the glowing passage. The tower felt different now, less like stone, more like memory. The walls shimmered with soft images, stars, symbols, moments from long ago. Kalia stopped in front of one of them. It showed a child, alone in a cave, glowing faintly, crying quietly. Eli realized it was her. "You've always carried this alone," he said. Kalia nodded. "Until you came." Their hands touched without fear, and the scent that once kept the world away now filled the air like music. Not sharp, not strange, but warm, wild, and alive. At the end of the passage stood a door. It was covered in marks that matched both of their skin. Symbols from two bloodlines, now merged into one. Eli placed his hand on the door. It opened without sound. Inside was a chamber filled with light, but also with memory and pain. The kind of pain that's lived in silence for generations. Kalya stepped inside and gasped. Around them were dozens of figures, holograms, flickering softly. They were not human, not like her either. They were the first ones, the ones who had started the bond. One of the figures turned toward her. You carry the blood of balance, it said. And you, it said to Eli, carry the key to break the silence. The mark on Eli's arm began to burn again. So did Kalya's chest. Their bodies were glowing with the same energy now. Suddenly, the room darkened. The tower trembled, and a crack opened in the floor. From it, a deep voice echoed upward. You were meant to be divided, it growled. Not joined. Kalya turned, eyes glowing bright. You fed on fear long enough, she said. We're not afraid anymore. The light inside them exploded outward. The chamber filled with energy. The symbols on the walls shifted. The tower began to lift from the ground, piece by piece. Back in the city, the elders watched in horror. The tower is rising, one said. The balance is breaking, said another. No, said the oldest elder. It's returning. A massive wave of light rippled across the desert. The scent they had once cast out reached the city walls. And instead of fear, the people felt something strange. Hope. Kalya and Eli floated at the center of the glowing chamber. They saw each other fully now. Not as strangers, not as outcasts, but as answers. Two parts of something ancient that had waited lifetimes to come together. Kalya looked down at her hands. The glow didn't scare her anymore. She was no longer hiding. No longer apologizing for what she was. Eli reached out. We end it together, he said. Kalya smiled. No, she said. We begin it together. Washed in fire and love. There was no sound, no wind, no voices, only silence. Kalya and Eli stood at the edge of the final chamber. Beneath them, a smooth floor of black stone. Above them, a sky they couldn't see. In front of them, the source. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't alive, but it was watching. A sphere of white light floated in the center, moving slowly, breathing without breath. Kalya stepped closer. Her scent filled the room, not sharp, not harsh, but clear, honest, real. Eli stood beside her, his mark glowing like fire under his skin. They had walked through fear, through lies, through silence. And now the truth waited. You were never cursed, the source said. Its voice wasn't loud. It was felt inside the heart. You were marked. So that one day, you would return. Kalya's eyes filled with tears. All the pain, the exile, the loneliness, it had meaning, not punishment, but preparation. Eli stepped forward. Why me, he asked. I'm just human. I crashed here by accident. There are no accidents, the source replied. You were called. Because only together can you decide. The room began to change. Visions appeared in the air, of cities healed, planets connected, old wounds closed by unity. But then, darker visions followed. War, division, the return of fear. If the bond between Kalya and Eli was broken, the universe would fall back into silence. You must choose, said the source. Merge and awaken the power. Or walk away and let the world remain as it is. Kalya looked at Eli. Her eyes didn't ask for permission. They asked for truth. Are you ready? Eli smiled. Only if you are. They stepped into the light together. And the source responded. Fire rose from the floor. But it did not burn. Water circled their feet. But it did not wet. They were surrounded by everything. And nothing. At once. Their bodies glowed. The marks on their skin merged into a single symbol. The scent that once chased Kalya into hiding now poured across the galaxy. But this time, it didn't bring fear. It brought awakening. In the city, the elders fell to their knees. Their power faded like smoke and wind. In the sky, the stars blinked in patterns not seen for 1,000 years. In the deep forests, in the far deserts, creatures lifted their heads and breathed in the new air. A new signal, a new life. Kalya and Eli floated at the heart of the source. Not as two, but as one. Human and alien. Fear and courage, silence and voice. They were the proof that unity was not weakness. It was strength. The source dimmed. The chamber stilled. They landed gently on the stone floor. Changed. Not just in body, but in soul. Kalya looked at her hands. The glow was still there, but softer now. Eli looked around and whispered, Is it done? Kalya smiled. No, she said. It's just beginning.